In 2012, a research team excavating around one of the standing Moai on Easter Island reached a depth of just over 2 meters before they understood what they were actually looking at. The statue everyone photographs, the head visible above the grass, was not the statue. It was the top eighth of it. Beneath the surface, the torso continued, carved, detailed, with markings that had never been seen by anyone, for reasons that took longer to understand than the digging itself. That discovery did not solve a mystery. It revealed that the mystery had been misunderstood from the start. This is ancient cipher, and today we examine what happens when a site this famous gets studied closely enough to stop making sense. Easter Island, Rapa Nui, is one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth. A volcanic speck in the South Pacific, over 3,500 kilometers from the nearest continental coastline, populated by approximately 900 monumental stone statues known as Moai, carved between roughly 1250 and 1500 CE by the Rapa Nui people. For most of the modern era, the Moai have been understood primarily through their heads. Tourist photography, documentary footage, and popular imagination have flattened the statues into a single recognizable image, elongated stone faces staring outward, partially sunk into grassy hillsides. 5 sites of inquiry, 5 separate areas where closer study of Rapa Nui has produced findings that complicate rather than confirm the standard narrative. We will go through all 5 today. What the island reveals, the deeper researchers dig, quite literally, is a site that becomes less explainable the more carefully it is examined. Begin with the bodies. The image of a Moai as a head emerging from the ground is, for the majority of the standing statues at the Rongorongo quarry, technically accurate and almost completely misleading. Excavations conducted by the Easter Island Statue Project, led by archaeologists Joanne van Tilburg and Christian Arevalo Pacarati, have confirmed that many of the heads visible above ground are connected to full torsos extending 2 to 3 meters beneath the surface, buried not by erosion or accident, but by sediment accumulation over centuries. When excavation reached the buried torsos, researchers found something that had not been documented before: petroglyphs, carved markings on the backs and sides of the statues, in locations that would have been invisible the moment the statues were erected and the surrounding ground began to accumulate sediment. The carvings include crescent shapes, ring motifs, and what some researchers have interpreted as canoe imagery, distinct from the carving style of the visible heads, and in several cases appearing to have been added after the initial carving of the statue itself. Why carve detailed imagery onto a part of the statue that would be buried or nearly buried almost immediately? That question does not have a confirmed answer. The carvings may represent a ritual completion process, markings added as part of the statue's final consecration, regardless of visibility. Or they may indicate that the statues were originally intended to stand fully exposed, with burial occurring later and unintentionally, through erosion and slope sediment that the Rapa Nui did not anticipate or were unable to manage. Both explanations are plausible. Neither has been confirmed, and the second explanation, if accurate, raises a further question about a society's relationship with its own monuments, whether they were maintained or whether at some point they simply stopped being maintained and the island's slopes did the rest. Move from the bodies to the eyes. For most of the period since European contact in 1722, the Moai have been studied, photographed, and represented without eyes. Blank stone sockets, deep set beneath heavy brows, became part of the iconic image, somber, hollow, watching nothing. In 1979, archaeologist Sergio Rapu discovered fragments of white coral and reddish scoria during excavation near one of the statue platforms. Fragments that, when reconstructed, formed eyes. Inlaid coral for the whites, with a contrasting stone disc for the iris, designed to be fitted into the eye sockets of completed moai. The discovery meant that the moai, as originally presented, were not blank-eyed monuments staring into the distance. They had eyes. Deliberately fitted, almost certainly during a specific ceremonial moment, after the statue had been transported to its final platform and raised into position. The eyes were not permanent. Evidence suggests the coral eyes were inserted only during specific ceremonies and may have been removed afterward, meaning the iconic blank stare that has defined the Moai for 3 centuries of outside observation may represent the statues in a deliberately incomplete state. The true appearance of an activated Moai, eyes in place facing a specific ceremonial direction, has been seen by almost no one outside the original Rapa Nui culture. What we have been looking at for 300 years may be the monument switched off. The third area of close study concerns not the statues themselves, but the platforms they stand on, the Ahu. The Ahu are stone platforms, many of them substantial structures in their own right, on which the Moai were erected facing inland toward the villages and ceremonial areas they were believed to watch over. Several of the Ahu show construction techniques that, on close examination, appear inconsistent with the rest of the site's architecture. At Ahu Vinapu, on the southern coast of the island, one platform displays stonework with tightly fitted, irregular polygonal blocks, a construction style that bears a visual resemblance to megalithic stonework found in the Andes, particularly at sites like Sacsayhuamán and Tiwanaku, thousands of kilometers away across open ocean. The resemblance has been noted by multiple researchers and remains a subject of genuine, if cautious, discussion. The mainstream position is that the similarity reflects independent development, different cultures, separated by enormous distance, arriving at similar stoneworking techniques, because certain construction problems have a limited number of effective solutions. That explanation is reasonable. It is also on its own somewhat unsatisfying. Independent development is the default explanation for almost every cross-cultural architectural similarity in the ancient world. At Ahu Vinapu, at the megalithic sites of the Mediterranean, at the stepped pyramid traditions found on multiple continents. It may be correct in every individual case, but the cumulative pattern across enough cases is one that some researchers feel deserves more systematic attention than a repeated case-by-case dismissal provides. We are now past the midpoint of this examination, and what has emerged is not a single mystery, but a pattern of revision, each close study correcting not a small detail, but the basic framing of what the previous level of study had assumed. The statues were not just heads, they were not blank-eyed. Some of the platforms echo construction styles from across an ocean. In each case, the surface-level understanding of Rapa Nui, the version most people carry, turns out to be incomplete in a way that close study did not anticipate finding. A skeptical viewer might reasonably say at this point, every ancient site looks more complex up close. That is not unique to Easter Island. Closer study always reveals more detail. This is simply what archaeology does. That is true, and it is an important caution. But what makes Rapa Nui distinct is not simply that closer study revealed more detail. It is that closer study revealed a different object entirely. A head became a body. A blank stare became a deliberately inserted and removable feature. A familiar silhouette turned out to be, in its complete and original form, something that almost no living person has actually seen depicted accurately. The most measurable piece of evidence in this entire examination is the excavation depth itself. 2 to 3 meters of sediment burying torsos that were never meant to be hidden, recorded by archaeologists with tape measures and stratigraphic logs. That is not interpretation. That is documented physical, repeatable measurement. And it means that the image carried by billions of people around the world, the iconic head on the hillside, is, for a significant number of the island's most famous statues, less than 15% of the object it represents. The fourth area of close study is the most contested and the most quietly significant. Rongorongo is a system of glyphs found carved onto a small number of wooden tablets on Rapa Nui, first documented by missionaries in the 1860s. It remains, to this day, an undeciphered script. Fewer than 30 authenticated tablets are known to survive, most damaged, scattered across museum collections worldwide. What makes Rongorongo significant in the context of close study is the deepening of the mystery rather than its resolution. Early researchers assumed the glyphs represented a relatively simple mnemonic or ritual notation system. Closer linguistic and statistical analysis, including computational analysis conducted in recent decades, has revealed structural regularities in the glyph sequences, consistent with genuine written language, including patterns that suggest grammatical structure. If Rongorongo represents an independently developed writing system, it would be one of a very small number of times in human history that writing was invented from scratch, on one of the most isolated populated land masses on Earth, by a population numbering at most a few thousand people. That possibility has not been confirmed. It has also not been ruled out, and the closer Rongorongo has been studied, the more it has resisted the simple categorization, decorative or proto-writing, that earlier researchers were comfortable assigning to it. The fifth and final area is the one that ties the previous four together, and it concerns not a structure but a population collapse. The conventional narrative of Rapa Nui, popularized largely through the work of writers in the late 20th century, describes an ecological catastrophe, deforestation, driven by the demands of Moai construction and transport, leading to soil erosion, agricultural collapse, and a population crash from an estimated peak of up to 15,000 people down to a few thousand by the time of European contact. Closer archaeological and paleoclimatic study over the past 2 decades has complicated this narrative substantially. Evidence suggests the deforestation occurred more gradually than the collapse model proposes, that the Rapa Nui population may have adapted their agricultural practices successfully to the changed environment, and that the most severe population decline actually occurred after European contact, driven by introduced disease and slave raids in the 19th century, not by a pre-contact ecological collapse. The ecocide narrative, the idea that the Rapa Nui destroyed their own environment and themselves through the very monument building that made the island famous, has been the dominant popular explanation for decades. Closer study suggests it may be substantially wrong, or at minimum, substantially incomplete. Five areas of inquiry. 5 cases where studying Rapa Nui more closely did not confirm what was already believed. It replaced it. The statues are not heads, the eyes were not always absent. The platforms may echo construction traditions from across an ocean that independent development cannot fully explain away. The script may be a genuine independent invention of writing, and the story of the island's downfall, the story most people know, may have the cause and timeline substantially wrong. What does it mean when the most studied version of a place turns out to be the least accurate one? Rapa Nui has been examined for 3 centuries, excavated, photographed, mapped, and written about more than almost any other Pacific site. And the central finding of that sustained attention is not that the island has been understood. It is that understanding it required going underground, literally, in the case of the statues, to discover that the surface version everyone accepted was only ever the smallest visible part of something much larger. What else on this island or any other are we currently looking at the top 1/8 of?